Whoops, I started without music. Let's put on a little music. So this is going to be very similar to psoas release. And I know, Janet, that you're familiar with. You've taken a few of those. So it's going to be a lot like psoas release. However, we're just going to be focusing a little bit more on internal listening. And release is always an option. So every one of these classes, I'll still be leading and guiding you through psoas release. However, that's not always going to be your main goal. It's more the goal of these classes is to begin more conversations with your body, starting to become a little bit more in tune to what it's asking, because we're not always in need of getting rid of the energy, but in need of drawing in, and to better form that connection between what's happening in mind, what's happening in spirit and body, and letting them all kind of have a chance to speak almost to each other, if that makes more sense. And oftentimes in our lives, when we have gone through trauma, it's a disconnect in order as a survival mechanism. And even it doesn't have to be a big disconnect. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it takes a while to trust and to bring that back. But it can even be small. We might learn to kind of quiet something within in order to survive and to keep moving on. So this class is kind of that reconnecting and rejoining in of that. So I really appreciate you for being here for it. But like I said, it's really similar to a psoas release with just some slight differences. So if you wanted to start in maybe what we call instant Maui, or something that just kind of allows that psoas muscle a little bit of space. So if you have some blocks, you can bring those at near the bottom of your mat. If you have a bolster, you can place it on top of the blocks. If you don't have a bolster, that's perfectly fine. A blanket will also do. And then you are just going to be able to bring your calves to that block and rest. And you can make this as high as you like, or even if you have a chair or a sofa, you can place your calves on the edge of that block. Even just Savasana, laying out and resting, palms up. Allow the backs of your shoulders to begin to soften towards the mat. And as you're here in this space, not yet directing breath, letting breath start to draw you in by just becoming aware of the inhales, aware of the exhales. And as you're ready, starting to expand breath, beginning in the low belly. Draw the breath in through the nose or the mouth, whatever feels good. Expand the low belly, let the diaphragm expand, let the breath broaden the shoulders, the collarbone, the ribs. As you exhale, slow and smooth, let everything soften, belly, diaphragm, shoulders. And take a couple more of these deep, cleansing inhales and slow releasing exhales. And just notice how this breath feels in your body. As you continue this breathing, and you can even let go of some of the depth if that is more comfortable. And just starting at the top of your head, just becoming aware, as if you could scan through your body with an awareness, but almost like if you were to pluck judgment, like it was a petal on a flower, and remove it and replace it with just curiosity. Letting yourself scan through your eyes, noticing your cheekbones and your jaw, your mouth, throat, letting breath move through the collarbone and shoulders, through arms, fingers, torso, a heart space and belly. Just an awareness of your hips, the back of your body, thighs and knees, your calves, your ankles, your feet. There's an interconnectedness and an integration of ourself and our body, not only to gain knowledge of what's around us, our safety, but also our pleasures. Our body is what we've come into this world with. It's our best friend. In her book, Julie Yao says, when this relationship is disrupted or compromised, then all of our other relationships become disrupted and compromised. Without this healthy and vibrant relationship with ourselves, with our body, we can experience a myriad of symptoms from depression and shame, anxiety, headaches, lack of self-worth, and more. So even if just for this morning on your mat, you can set aside any judgments and negative thoughts about body. And embrace, nurture, and love. So if you have any other intentions, any other mantras today, let them be here in this space right now, breathing into them. Letting that exhalation find a bit of release and softening. And as you're ready, just starting to make some movements wherever you're at into your ankles, making some circles. And then maybe circling into the wrists as well. And again, bringing that kind of gentle awareness. So not fixating on any situation, on any experience happening in your body, but as if there was a curiosity to each movement. Maybe fanning out the fingers, fanning out toes. And then gently drawing those knees in, and we can move, if you have anything on your mat, just kind of setting it aside for the moment. And bring the soles of the feet to the mat, about mat width apart, and then as you exhale, letting the knees drift to one side. As you inhale, they drift back up towards center. Exhale towards the other, and see how much you can let the tops of your shoulders release down to the mat. So while you might not have any issue letting those knees and hips rock, perhaps you're finding tension in your face and neck, and see how quickly you can release that tension. And then bringing those legs, soles of the feet back towards the mat. So a couple of options. You can leave left sole of the foot towards the mat or extend it, whatever feels better to you. Definitely extending that right leg. So what we're going to do here is start to actually feel into the psoas to create kind of an awareness. So if you were to take your right fingertips and kind of discover that right hip bone, that part that is a little bit more protruding, and then work your way about 2 inches towards your belly button. So kind of in line with your belly button, moving 2 inches, and not digging your fingertips, but just gently kind of pressing your fingertips in. If you go ahead and flex into your right foot and then begin to lift that right leg, you might notice there's something in, and not abdominal, it's not the abdominal muscle, but you'll notice there's a tense muscle, ropey-like muscle as you lift your leg. And you can kind of just explore nice and gently, maybe moving the fingertips, sometimes depending on abdominal development, you might need to kind of move that abdominal wall, get the fingertips a little bit underneath, and then you'll notice there's a kind of ropiness. And even if you don't feel it, that's okay. You can take your hand, just placing it in that hip crease, kind of just inside, underneath that protrusion of your hip bone. And you'll notice the psoas there. You can kind of lift and lower the leg, just allowing the fingertips to kind of find that tension, just to feel and connect to it. And using the psoas muscle, because the psoas muscle connects our upper and lower halves, and it also holds on to a lot of tension and stress. And then go ahead and soften that right leg. You can either just let it land on the mat or maybe sole the foot towards the mat. Take another moment to windshield wiper just to soften. And maybe feel in, maybe you notice already right and left a difference. And just with that awareness of the muscle or just that simple movement already. Letting the breath kind of initiate the movements. And then we'll move on to the left side. So again, that right sole of the foot can be straightened or sole of the foot towards the mat, extending into the left leg, taking left fingertips, finding that hip bone, and then moving gently about 2 inches towards your belly button. And you kind of notice as you feel around, and then maybe start to lift your leg. So the psoas muscle connects to the top of our upper thigh, wraps around the front of the hip bone, runs through towards the back, connecting to the back of the lumbar spine, as well as the diaphragm. And it moves, slides like a tongue, not so much contracts like a bicep. And it is part of our autonomic nervous system when there's a sensation of danger. We as humans and a lot of mammals will curl in to protect those vital organs. So it's important, but it also can become kind of stiff or overloaded or sensitive. And again, if you're not noticing that feeling, just you can bring your hand flat right on top of that hip crease and begin lifting and lowering, just becoming aware of that movement. And stop whenever it feels good if you're already fatigued. Windshield wiper those legs side to side. Big deep inhale and a cleansing exhale. Release your jaw. So during these classes, not only creating those connections, but also becoming aware of stored energy. Maybe it's, I almost hate to use the word stuck because maybe it's just unresolved. We haven't quite learned what we've needed to, so we're just allowing that space to do so. And now here, keeping left sole of the foot towards the mat, go ahead and cross that right leg over. Drop both knees into the chest, nice and gently. Taking hold of below the knee or behind the hamstring. If you're already a little bit warmed up, you can flex into your feet, taking hold of the outer edges of the feet, just being really mindful. Let tops of the shoulders release to the mat here, flexing into your feet if you're taking hold of the knife edges of your feet. Draw a deep inhale into that low belly. As you exhale, release your jaw, let that breath go. And now here, find a little kind of backing off. So draw those knees away from the chest. As you exhale, feel as if you could draw your pubic bone to the belly button, feel your core light up. Draw those knees back in. If you'd like, you can even lift the chest, so curling in like a little ball, but keep that contraction in the belly. Draw everything in. There's a little bit of tension here in the legs as well. As you exhale, just think of soften everything down to the mat. That left sole of the foot can come towards the mat. Arms can go out like a wing. And then as you're ready, let those knees drift to the right as your left shoulder blade stays towards the mat. As you inhale, bring those knees back up towards center. As you exhale, let the knees float to the left as right shoulder blade stays on the mat. Maybe gaze goes over right fingertips. As you exhale, come back towards center. To find a little unwinding, we'll come into dead bug. Bring those legs up. If it feels good, you can bring arms up. Maybe flexing into the feet, spanning out the fingers. I'm really noticing here. Ooh, that spaciousness. And then softening back down, bringing that right sole of the foot towards the mat, crossing the left leg over. Draw those knees into the chest, nice and gently. So knees are stacked, if that feels okay. They can be a little bit separated too. Taking hold of just behind, below the knees or behind the hamstrings. Again, if you're feeling a little bit stretched out and that feels okay, you can take the knife edges of the feet, keeping them flexed. Tops of the shoulders easing to the mat. Soften belly. And then release, kind of moving those knees away from the chest, creating a little space. Breathe into that low belly. And as you exhale, firm up that core. Think of the hip points coming towards each other as you draw pubic bone towards belly button. Draw those knees towards chest. If it feels good and okay to lift the chest. So creating a lot of tension here, almost as if you could cross your knees more to create tension in the legs. So drawing everything in, curling everything in. One more moment. And then as you exhale, soften down. Almost seeing as if you can release that tension completely, fully. As you exhale, let those knees drift to the right as left shoulder blade stays on the mat. Drawing them back up towards center as you exhale, let the knees drift to the left as you allow that right shoulder blade to gaze over right fingertips. As you exhale, let each exhale show you some tension that you're holding in your body. And again, without that judgment of, oh my gosh, I'm holding tension here again. It just is. And just let it go. Coming back towards center, unwinding, unfurling. And then draw those knees in, making some big circles into the knees. And again, bringing that curiosity, that awareness. What do my hips feel like today? And you can reverse that circle. So a lot of these classes will be kind of just an exploration, a holding space for you to sense in and kind of figure some things out. As you take an inhale, you can draw knees to chest, and maybe if it feels good on your spine, begin to rock from front to back of your mat, but only do so if that feels nice on your spine. If not, go ahead and just roll to one side and allow yourself to come up to seated, nice and gently, finding our seated position. And if you like, you can bring a folded up blanket or block, placing it just underneath your seat, coming towards the edge of it. Finding the most comfortable position. So if your hip flexors are feeling tight, or if the outer thighs are feeling tight, feel free to use some blocks, placing them directly underneath the thighs. Let sits bones reach down, let crown of the head reach up, and we're just going to start to make some bigger torso rolls. So as your sits bones stay seated, finding some big circles, and as you exhale, keep hands on the knees, let your mid back be drawn to whatever is behind you. Breathing in, and again, bringing that awareness. How does my spine feel? How is my spine moving? Is this drawing up anything for me? And again, you can reverse the circle, but if there's a particular area that feels really good or tight or like it needs some attention, just let your awareness settle there, but without judgment. So I kind of had this like, oh man, this lower back right here. Oh, what did I do? But without that, see if there's a removal of that and just move with it. Move a little bit more. If it doesn't feel good to do that, definitely don't stay in it and move. What if I were to drop the shoulder? What if I were to drift my chin further towards chest. Questions like that. Allow yourself to come back towards center. Take a big deep inhale, reach those arms up. As you exhale, let the left hand float down, reach the right hand over. Keep that right sits bones softening towards the mat. Keep your chest open, feeling that elongation in the side body. Coming back up towards center, letting that hand float up, shoulder blades glide down, and then right hand comes down, left hand reaches over, left sits bone stays down towards the ground again, keeping that torso open. So there's a two-way. I think a lot of times we're taught in school, there's a lot of just inhale, come back up to center. As you exhale, come lowering those hands, and then we're going to kind of move into the neck. So gently let that left ear drift towards left shoulder. Feel that right shoulder become slightly heavier. If it feels okay to you, you can take that left hand, bring it up towards the head, and just as a gentle little guidance, but being really easy here. Big deep inhale in, and noticing any emotions that come up. Noticing how this feel, noticing any tension, and letting the breath speak to it. So that's what I was going to say. A lot of times we've learned, okay, well, the brain just tells, our lungs, there's not this awareness of messaging. Come back up towards center. Take a moment to feel that center. Take a moment to notice the difference between each side. Then let the right ear drift down. Let the left shoulder become very heavy. If it feels okay to take that right hand and just gently, so there's not a pull, it's almost just like the weight or the suggestion of fingertips on the side of the head. But we also have the ability through breath and through awareness to calm down these systems that we are so used to being running on automatic. So 3 deep breaths allows that parasympathetic nervous system to kick in, that rest and digest, come back up towards center. And then bringing hands just behind the skull, base of the skull. Just let the fingertips kind of trickle their way down, just kind of noticing any tension, or you can smooth, even that smooth touch from just behind the skull down towards the tops of the shoulders, maybe even towards the front, maybe even a little squeeze on that trapezius muscle, or you can even fingertips just walking as like a little exploration, and breathe into there. Sense how that feels. Again, without judgment. This area is one where a lot of us will hold some tension, and that's okay. There's a reason that our bodies do things. So just taking a moment, maybe even moving that neck from side to side. You can let the torso move as well. And maybe even speaking to that tension, letting it know that it's okay to release here, that we're safe. And then let the fingertips kind of gently walk across collarbone. You can even tap, and then tap down into that sternum or walk. Sometimes the tapping can be a little much. To the ends of the shoulders, the shoulder heads, and then back and forth, back along the collarbone. Sometimes thymus tapping when we're in the midst of feeling really anxious can be another way to soothe and come back into that parasympathetic. And again, notice here, drawing in, does this do anything? And if it doesn't do anything, that's fine. Is there somewhere that feels sore? And then releasing that, just bringing the palms down, just taking a couple of deep inhales. Spread the breath to the low belly, expand the hips, the ribs, all the way to the crown of the head as you exhale. Soften belly, soften shoulder blades. Couple more of those. Maybe even as a release already. Way to clear. Then we'll come to table. So if you'd like, you can bring a towel or a blanket, placing it underneath your knees. Bringing the knees directly underneath hips, fanning out the fingertips nice and wide. A little bit wider than shoulder width or shoulder width. And again, you can walk the hands forward. They don't need to be directly underneath shoulders, especially if you have anything in the wrist that feels tight or tense. First, starting in a neutral spine, so the low belly is gently drawing in and up towards mid-back, crown of the head is reaching forward. As you inhale, let the hips lift, low belly sinks, heart shines through, chin comes up last. As you exhale, draw those hip points under, draw navel towards spine, really breathe all that air out. Flowing back and forth here. So another piece that I have learned is that the spine, when allowed to be a little bit more fluid, creates more neural connections. So a lot of this class will be about allowing that spine to be as fluid as possible, or purposefully creating movements like these in the spine, waves of the spine. So as you do these cat-cows, you can maybe tuck your toes and then begin as your hips lift to let your hips sink back and let that arch. So think of hips going back and crown of the head forward. So we're not compressing so much in the low back as we create this arch, but still keeping length as you let those hips go back. On an exhale, then come forward, but start tucking your tailbone like if you were doing the cat, and then coming forward, really rounding, pressing the earth away, chin can tuck, kind of leaning a bit more forward. And again, if your wrists have any tension, you can feel free to bring hands on top of blocks, walking them slightly forward as you do this to create a little bit more opening in the wrists. So now we're forward, lifting that chin, shoulder blades slide down your back, and think of almost as if somebody were drawing those hip points back, less arching towards the ceiling. Let those hips almost be what anchors you slowly towards the back. And you send those hips back. So just getting a little bit bigger here with our cat-cows, and then starting to exhale, draw those hips under, moving forward. Again, moving kind of slow through this to let that unfurling, and again, hips draw back. And even notice as more weight goes into your feet as your hips drop back, feeling into the space underneath your feet. So just follow your breath here and explore this movement. You might notice your body wanting to pull to one side. Just really sensing in. Maybe you'd like to stay towards the front and just move from side to side. So this is your space right here. Take a few moments. And you may even find you just resting with hands on forward. Whatever it is for you. But bring that breath. So we're just allowing ourselves this space for wherever we have kind of pushed down emotions into our bodies, maybe just because we didn't have time. And bring that curiosity again, removing judgment, adding in some curiosity, letting the spine move, letting hips move from side to side. Letting ourselves become kind of integrated in the process of becoming aware, the process of connecting. Taking a couple more breaths. And now with those feet still tucked under, we're just going to kind of take this up. So starting more of a neutral spine. Hands can be on the floor, hands can be on blocks, toes are tucked under. So low belly is gently drawing in and up. Pressing into the ball of the feet, pressing into the hands. We're going to come into almost like a little hovering here. And you might notice right away psoas lights up. So that connection between the upper thigh and that mid back, you might notice something in hip flexors light up. We're going to get a little bit more into those. So that similar wave. So let those hips drift up and let those hips drop back as crown of the head reaches forward, only arching so much as feels good in your back. And then kind of coming into almost a downward dog, but high on those toes, start to tuck the tailbone under. And you can keep the knees bent. We're not kind of straightening and bending, letting them come almost to that hover, and then knees drop back. It's like a little spinal wave. You may notice this in your shoulders. You may notice a little heat generated here. So this is also part of kind of adding in a little bit of stress to the psoas muscle, making that tremor, if we want it at the end of class, to be there. One more time. Inhale, let those hips draw you back. Those knees are bent, and then kind of the hips come up as that spine moves forward. And now really slowly keep that low belly integrated. Bring knees out, let them land. Toes together, send the hips back. Take a rest in child's pose. Hands can be forward or back by your side. Big deep breath in. Let that low belly press against your thighs. Let that exhale release. In the sutras, they say the discipline of attention must be applied to the practice of each asana to penetrate to its very depths in the remotest parts of the body. Even the meditational asana has to be cultivated by the fibers, cells, joints, and muscles in cooperation with the mind. Allow that space for breath. Exhale, draw shoulder blades down your back. Let that all move out. Allow yourself another deep inhale and a cleansing exhale. Then bringing those hands forward, taking gaze forward, fanning out fingers really wide. Coming back towards table. Tucking those toes under, and again, coming to this time downward facing dog, but taking your time. Press the mat forward. You can keep those knees bent as you find those hips lifting upwards. Shoulders more in a neutral position, shoulder blades gliding down your back, and then straightening into knees as heels soften towards the mat. They do not need to touch the mat. And then giving yourself a little space here, maybe bending into each knee. And letting breath be our guide, showing us where there might be tension or maybe a connection we haven't felt in a while. Maybe we haven't noticed how our toes feel in downward dog until breath moves there. Then as you're ready, on an exhale, let that right leg just gently float up. As you exhale, bend into the knee, come up high on those left toes, bend elbows straight back. And exhale, press the earth away as that right foot lands behind, right hand. Coming back onto the ball of that back foot, bending into the back knee to create core strength. So using your core, then press all the way up, unfurling. Let that back left heel soften towards the mat. Keep that front knee bent. And then here we're just going to take a little bit more time than say we normally would. Lifting up those right toes, maybe even the front of the right foot as you press that right heel down into the mat to light up that leg and bend into that right knee. As we're in warrior one, those hips can be open. They don't need to be straight towards the front of your mat to allow for the softness in that back knee. But feel the back knee or the back heel as if it were going to slide the mat back behind you. So we're creating almost a lot of tension in the legs as those arms lift. Shoulder blades glide down the back. Maybe you can bend a little bit more, slide that heel forward so that knee doesn't go out over the toes, but also we're pressing the mat forward. If it feels good to connect hands in the back, clasping hands, opening up chest, keeping all this tension in the front of like pressing down and forward with that heel. Maybe if it feels good to you to let that heart melt, keep reaching knuckles towards the back to keep that spine nice and long. So once again, we're creating a lot of energy in this front leg, almost building a little bit of heat. Big, deep inhale, cleansing exhale. You can release the hands, bring them to the floor, or if you have blocks, that's always handy on either side of that foot. Bring that ball of the back foot, so now we are square towards the front, and slowly let that left knee drift down towards the mat. So coming up, making sure that we're 90-degree angle, something else a little bit different, and we're going to spend some time here exploring. So we have 90-degree angle in the back. We can untuck the back leg. There's a slight pressing down of the top of the foot into the mat. You may notice the thigh light up, maybe even this left glute light up. Bringing hands to the top of the right leg, gently pressing down, noticing core light up, shoulder blades glide down your back. So keeping all of this energy, so pressing that right heel into the mat. So now the legs are super, super active. We're going to stretch this front hip flexor, psoas muscle, simply by just bringing this hip. So think of pubic bone to belly button to also soften into the low back. And then just a gentle draw forward of this hip. So typically we'll sink in. It's not as much that as a little inch forward. That knee is driving down. It's almost like we're kind of tucking tailbone, moving this hip forward. And you might notice a little something in the inner thigh up into the actual crease. Maybe you're noticing it more on the outside of your quad. And then once you've felt that, then explore. Explore what it's like to release that tension, bring that hip forward. Explore what it's like to maybe keep that tension in the left leg as you come forward. So there's lots of areas in our hip flexor. As if I lean forward here, I get more into the inner thigh. I create more tension again. Press down in the hands, press the heel down. I just have to move my hip forward slightly, and I'm feeling it in my psoas. I'm going to release the tension, lean forward. Just allow yourself some space here to explore different areas of stretching the hip flexor. If at any time, hands on the blocks, just to find that release. And maybe it's a going back and forth. Maybe that feels better. Maybe creating so much heat in the body is not your thing today, but a back and forth motion feels better. Shoulder blades sliding down your back. You might even want to try bringing the knee out, toes out, same direction. How does this feel today? Spend a little time. Bring that breath, bring curiosity. Couple more breaths. And bring both hands on either side of that front leg. Come back to downward facing dog. Take a moment in downward dog to reset. Big inhale up from the earth, cleansing exhale out of an open mouth. Couple more of those. Feel your shoulder blades drift towards your back pockets. Fan out fingers, fan out toes. Maybe moving your neck and head around. Then as you're ready, take a big inhale, let that left leg float up. As you exhale, come high on the right, toes soften into earth, bend elbows and knees. Press the mat away on the exhale, left foot softens behind left hand. Bend into the back knee to use your core to draw all the way up. And then let that back heel soften down. So coming into warrior one, it's okay if hips are open, and you can draw shoulders towards the front. And again, taking a little time here, maybe lifting up the toes, press that heel down and forward, feel the leg light up. You can bring those toes down, maybe even bending more. And it's like the back leg was trying to stretch your mat wider. You can inhale the arms up. So you're creating this dynamic tension, clasping hands. Maybe it's more isometric because it's non-moving, opening up chest. Keep all this length, keep all this activity in the legs. If it feels good to you to let that heart melt forward, still pressing that heel down, that foot down. So soften into the toes, let that foot do all the work. Behind the big toe and pinky, but the toes are kind of soft. That'll keep your foot from cramping. We're activating that psoas, getting nice and warm. You can release the hands, either come down to the floor or use blocks. Soften that right knee. Untucking that back toe. So both knees, we're at 90 degrees here. Press the top of your foot down into the mat. Feel that right leg light up. Soften the tailbone by bringing pubic bone to belly button so that that tailbone were to soften down to the floor. Press down into that left heel. Hands come onto the top of that thigh. Press down so that core lights up. So we're creating so much tension here. And then maybe just that hip, as you squeeze the glute, comes forward. It's a tiny little movement, but you might feel that psoas. Whoop. Maybe you feel it inner thigh, and then release that tension. Maybe even sink down and then come back to creating that tension. Pressing everything down, soften tailbone. We're kind of actively engaging psoas and stretching, but then release and explore. What does it feel like if just hips move without that tension? Maybe it feels, what does it feel like to rock back and forth? But we've created that tension so that if you would like to tremor at the end, it's there. But just as a curiosity, again, how does this stir up emotion? As you exhale, allow shoulder blades wherever you are to soften down. We're just moving through energies here. We're letting our bodies explore where we might hold on to this. And again, our bodies do this in service of us, it's not something it's doing to us. It's helping us. Again, you can if you're letting this leg fall out, just be mindful as you move here, toe and knee in same direction. Always as you move through, letting your body tell you if there's pain, move off of that. Couple more breaths, just moving and exploring at your own pace. No rush. This is your opportunity to have a conversation with what feels good. Conversation with what happens when I move this way. And as you're ready, bringing both hands on either side, we're going to come back to downward facing dog. Big exhale out. If ever you'd like to come to child's pose instead, that's always okay. It's always okay to take a pause. Fan out fingers, fan out toes. As you exhale, let that crown of the head kind of drift towards your mat. As you're ready on your next inhale, that right leg floats up again. As you exhale, softening down into the earth and then press the earth away. Right foot behind right hand, coming into that crescent. So use that back knee to bend. Draw up from the earth. Unfurl. If that back leg stays a little bent, that's okay. Shoulder blades glide down your back. On your next inhale, we're going to open this up to warrior two. Nice and strong here. Again, that same pressing down of the heel. Outer rotation of that left. Oh, that's your right leg. Arms come up. Take that gaze over that front fingertips. And then we're going to play with side angle here. So forearm can come down to the thigh, can come down to blocks. If you would like a little bit more intensity in the hip flexor, kind of find a floating arm. Bring that left arm, reach it overhead, keeping those shoulders open, hips open. As you exhale, sweep that left hand down towards the back as it comes forward, and then elbow reaches ear, bend into the elbow, slide the shoulder blades down your back, and then open up again. So pressing that heel forward, sweep one more time. So if you're floating, you might feel this intensity here, hip flexor, psoas, Press that mat forward. One more time. You could kind of lean in a little bit more on the right shoulder to take some of that intensity off. Reach again. Beautiful. Inhale back into that strong warrior two. Pivot that right foot forward, come into a big star shape. Reach, reach, reach. As you exhale, send the hips back. Let that chest fall forward, wide-legged forward fold. If you'd like, you can take hold of the ankles. You can bring those hands back towards the wall behind you. And notice where your weight is in your feet. And then take a little time to explore that. Does it feel better towards just behind the big toe? What happens if I even out that weight distribution between big toe and behind pinky? What happens if there's a little bit more weight on the knife edge of my feet? As you're ready, bring those hands directly into your face. As you inhale, wave the spine forward, a little half lift here. As you exhale, draw those knees inwards, coming up into a bit of a goddess here. Give your hips some space. So instead of just jamming that tailbone under, let those hips find the back wall, and then use your torso to bring you all the way up. And raise it up, turning back towards the front of your mat. Bend into that knee, exhale, coming into downward facing dog. Big inhale, cleansing exhale. Let yourself explore how that feels. How it felt in your body. Any emotions? As you're ready, inhale, let that left leg float up. Exhale, come up high on the right toes, soften down towards the earth, then let that left foot come behind left hand. Bend into the back knee, use your core to draw all the way up, unfurling here. Let the spine feel each bit of the unfurling, and then open up to strong warrior two. Press that heel forward, external rotation, so it's like this thigh was opening up. Beautiful. And we're going to play here in our extended side angle. So that left forearm can come to the top of the thigh, maybe even floating. And we're using all that buoyancy with the energy created in our legs as we kind of try and spread the mat apart. You can bring a hand down, fingertips to a block too. Let that right hand circle down in front, maintaining that right shoulder open slightly. It's obviously going to curve. Once that elbow hits your ear, draw shoulder blade down your back and reach. Make a couple more of those big circles and feel the legs. Don't run away from that. Maybe noticing that heat, noticing even the difficulty. Sometimes we like to shut off noticing difficult just so that we can get through. It's okay, but here, see if you can stick with it. As you're ready, inhale, come back up. That strong warrior two. Then pivot that left foot towards the side of your mat. Big star, reaching up. Exhale, wide-legged forward fold. Again, take a little time. Fan out the toes. Or maybe this time, instead of playing with feet, you play with, what does it feel like to wrap my hands around the back of the calves? What does it feel like if I reach them through? What does it feel like if they soften right under my face? As you're ready, take an inhale, find some length here in the spine. Let those heels drift in, toes same direction as knees. And Use the torso to unfurl. Feel the spine unfurling nice and slow. Hips can stay back to give yourself some space. Sink low. Maybe even a little side to side. Maybe your torso moves side to side today. Maybe that energy is asking for somewhere to go. Exhale. Come on up. Soften. Heel toe those feet in slightly. We're going to come into Malasana. So feet are going to be wider than hip width, toes same direction as the knees. Send those hips back as you let the forearms find the top of your thighs. Heart is coming forward, so there's a long line between tailbone, crown of the head. Feels good. You can let those elbows keep coming towards the inside. Let those hips sink down. You can have a block kind of behind you and let your seat find the block. Elbows pressing into knees, knees into elbows. Feel that lift of the heart upward. Crown of the head reaches upward. Big inhale in. Exhale. You can remove the block. So even as we kind of connect to senses and find delight in senses, that's a great way to be present and to give the mind and the body to dance together. So even really feeling into the hips here, maybe even thinking, what texture is my mat with my feet? How does the room smell? When you drink your coffee, spend a moment really connecting to that cup of coffee, the smell, the taste, the cup, what does it look like? And then release this, allowing yourself to come all the way down the length of the mat. Taking a big inhale, cleansing, releasing, exhale. Slowly, slowly laying down. Let those knees draw in gently and then towards the outside of the rib cage. Soles of the feet coming up towards the ceiling. Taking hold of calf, ankle, or the knife edges of your feet. We're going to create another little somatic stretching here. So pressing those feet towards the ceiling. Hands are creating this resistance, maybe just about 75-80%. So you're not 100. We're not tensing up shoulders. And as you exhale, use the entire length of the exhale as if you're turning the volume down and letting everything soften. Notice the hip creases. Notice shoulders. Notice your feet. Notice throat. And then again, on your next inhale, create that tension. And as you're creating tension, even notice where am I expending energy? Is it in my face, my throat, when I don't need to? Soften that. And as you exhale, decrease that tension all the way around till it's a zero. And you're just letting your body be in this shape. Soften your feet. Knees can be bent, so almost as if you could do cobbler's pose, but laying down. And just let the legs fall open, let your shoulders soften. Deep inhale, cleansing exhale. And then release the hold on your feet. And this is the space here. I will always guide you through a psoas release, the tremor. If you are used to tremoring and don't want to hear me, I will never be offended if you turn me off. We'll do a guided meditation after exploring 10 minutes. But use this time here, bring the soles of the feet first to the mat, let the knees draw into each other, and just notice what's here first. And let this guide you. Maybe you are feeling like more movement is needed. There's an energy that you've created. and you'd like to try tremoring, know that you can start your tremor and then stop. But you may notice here in this space that you just want to curl up. You may notice in this space you would rather stretch than tremor. And just give yourself a moment to feel before we begin. And we are humans, we change our minds. So you don't always have to release here in this space. There may be something else that needs to occur. If you would like to release, bring your soles of your feet together, but the feet are a bit away from your seat. So you're creating more of a diamond shape with your legs here. Taking a moment, press those feet together and down into the mat and let your hips lift. You may notice a bit of shaking already, or maybe a swaying back and forth. So this tremor, this psoas release here, is we have created some tension. We've created a bit of an awareness and some tension loading in almost to our psoas muscle. And now we're going to let it release. Every mammal has this ability to shake and tremor. Now soften the hips back down. Let those knees fall. And there's no effort here. Just let your body melt into the mat. And what we're doing is eliciting a neurogenic tremor in a safe place. Our body is safe here. Letting energies that maybe we've been holding on to release. Maybe it's not time for them to release, and that's okay too. But bringing the soles of the feet together, pressing them gently into the mat. Now gently bring those knees towards each other just about 1 inch. See if you can't soften a little bit more the backs of your shoulders towards the mat, the backs of your head and your neck. Letting whatever movement in your hips, in your belly, even in your spine, this tremor may move from those hip creases into your abdomen, into mid-belly. Let their exhales soften somewhere you don't need this tension, and allow whatever is here to be here. Know that tremoring is your body's natural ability to process and move through, but that this also can bring up emotions and maybe unexpectedly to you. So it's okay if this emotional release feels overwhelming. Connect back to the breath. If you'd like to keep tremoring through it, you may. You can pause. You can draw those knees into chest and curl up to one side and just listen. As you're here, you can maybe draw those knees towards each other just 1 more inch. So soles of the feet and hips are still down, and just exploring very slowly, drawing the knees towards each other. If at any moment this becomes exhausting and does not feel good, just extend your legs down the length of the mat or windshield wiper them. Find a rest. Your body may be requesting more stretching, maybe just sitting in cobbler's pose, maybe just bringing your legs up the wall. That's okay. And you can even explore having more of the bottom of your foot towards the mat. I like to just have the very inside of my big toe and inner feet touching and the outside edges towards the mat. You can explore maybe having those knees straight up, so almost in active rest. Another possible space or movement here in the space is to just bring soles of the feet towards the mat to heel softly, and then exploring hip tilts forward and back. So pressing the hips forward, letting the arch, and even then lifting. So as you've curled your hips up, then lifting upwards. Any spinal movements here also feel sometimes really good instead of or along with a psoas release. And the goal here is to stay connected. So if you feel the emotions, or if this becomes a sense where you need to disconnect, just look at your room, find something on the wall. Maybe think of what you ate this morning. Think of what you did before this class. Bring yourself slowly and easily back to this present moment and watch your inhales and your exhales. And wherever you're at, you can feel free to stay there. Maybe your body is still exploring the tremor. Maybe you are still curling in. Feel free to stay there. But do make sure at some point that you do give yourself a space to just completely soften. So if you're in a movement, allow at some point a complete just softening, whether it be during this guided meditation or whether it just be a few minutes at the end. Just to simply allow your body a little space. But we'll go ahead and start now the guided meditation. So if you would like to allow yourself to find a very comfortable position. So maybe that's once again having those legs up. Maybe it's a bolster under your knees or under your hips. Somewhere where your body can feel completely at ease and soften totally all tension. Allow yourself to just gently move your body as needed to increase your comfort level, maybe even just a little bit more. And then once you settle in, allow yourself a deep breath and a long exhale. And if it feels safe for you to do so, close your eyes softly. As you begin relaxing into this moment, feel gravity as it gently is pulling the weight of your body and makes contact to the ground below you. Take a moment and notice into all points of your body that are connected to the earth. And allow this connection to expand in all directions as if you could melt and broaden just a little bit deeper the shoulders onto the mat. Soften the hold on your belly, maybe even into your hips, your shoulder blades, and your neck. As you begin to breathe deeper and a little hold on that inhale as you exhale and a sigh or a whisper, exhaling deeply as you drop into this moment, repeating this breath. And should you notice any bodily sensations, just simply take note. Maybe even a little acknowledgement, a hello, body. I'm here with you. Today in this space, it's to be deeply aware and deeply present with your body. It has served you well, and it's time to give your full attention to your body. Right here, there's nowhere to go, and there's nothing to do but just to be with your body. Noticing what you notice, and then allowing it space to move and let go. As you're here, begin to deepen this awareness of your internal landscape, noticing thoughts, noticing emotions, and just as easily as you first notice them, begin to watch them fade away. Begin watching and following your breath. Each inhale and each exhale. There's no need to change your breathing. Just feeling the natural rhythm of your breath. Be with the rising and falling of your chest and your belly. If it feels right, you can place one hand on your belly to feel this rise and fall. Watch the air pass through your nostrils in and out, becoming this great observer of breath. If you find yourself elsewhere, which we sometimes do, just return to breath. Become curious about each detail of your breath, the sound, the temperature, how this feels in your nose and your lungs, and maybe even beyond. Let your awareness move past your expectation of breath. Allowing the breath to bring you into the moment of your body, to anchor you into your whole and complete self. Become aware once more of all points of your body that's meeting earth. And take a deep journey into this feeling of having a strong foundation and a deep connection to earth. As if the ground below you were softening and your body was resting gently, and a deep connection between you and the ground beneath you. Begin to let this connection to bring a further relaxation as you visualize any unwanted energy or thoughts and tension, stress, drama. Let it gently seep down into the earth, away from your body. And if your mind wanders, just bring that focus back to the flow of breath. Now let that attention move to your feet. Just an awareness, a noticing, an allowance of softening. Allow your mind to stop at your calves. Gently and peacefully begin scanning from your toes to your thighs. Just noticing what you notice. There might be sensations or images, thoughts and feelings. Whatever you experience here is perfect here in this moment. And if you aren't noticing anything, that too is perfect here in this moment. Just be with the lower half of your body, inquiring. And then moving now along to your torso. Center that attention on your belly. Our gut provides valuable information on a daily basis, information that flows to our brain, whether aware of it or not. And if it feels natural and peaceful, you can place your hands on your low belly and just notice here, whatever it is that you notice. Be present with this space, with this gut feeling, with this moment. If anything arises, an image, a voice, emotions, just allow that to be here. Give yourself space to just be with it. Again, there's nothing you need to do right here. Just allow yourself to simply hold space for listening, the space to be with your body. And now giving your belly almost as if you could embrace it and send gratitude. And then gently shift your focus now to the core of your heart. And if it helps, you can move your hand to your heart, allowing your heart just to beat at its natural rhythm as you notice what's here. Again, there may or may not be an image or a sensation. Just become attentive and deeply aware of anything that arises and not dismissing any of them. If it helps, you can even inquire of your heart. What would you like to say? What is it that you need? And then begin to move from that heart space to the crown of your head as your focus then becomes to the spaciousness to the sky above. The sky that is unlimited in its potential and endless possibilities, just like you. Taking in a gentle breath and exhaling, feeling this peacefulness that surrounds you. And then once more, on your next inhale, allow it to become broad and deep. On the exhale, a sigh. And take a moment just to feel your body as a whole here in this space. Your body that is complete, that is stunning. Your body as your best friend. Offer your whole body your deepest love, your deepest gratitude, simply because it is your body. It has nothing to prove. Maybe taking a little last inventory on how you feel in this space as you bring your focus back to your breath. Let the breath draw you into the room you're in as you exhale out. And without opening your eyes, just notice your body here in the space of the room that you're in. The awareness and maybe bringing some small movements to fingers and to toes, allowing a gentle movement to increase into ankles and wrists. As you're ready, you can inhale, draw arms overhead, point your toes down the length of the mat if that feels good. And as you exhale, you can draw knees to chest or just bring soles of the feet to the mat. Taking your time, maybe moving your head from side to side. You can rock from side to side if you're ready. And wherever you're at, allow yourself to pause, laying on one side, letting your belly soften, letting your cheek rest on your bicep. And just an allowance here of gratitude for self, to you, for holding space. And then as you're ready, you can gently bring yourself to an easy seated position, whatever that looks like for you. Or maybe it is still resting. It doesn't need to be sitting up. Sometimes we just need to honor that maybe it's not time to sit up, and I would never know the difference. So I'm just going to leave you with a quote today from Elizabeth Kadetsky. She said, "I could discover my body anew every day, and through it, discover the world around me. I could start again and remake my universe each and every day." I'm so thankful that you guys are here. This is something that I've been kind of thinking about and putting together, just a little bit different way to do psoas than the way I was taught, but still with the similar effect of connecting to body. So I really appreciate you for being here. I really appreciate you for giving yourself space and honoring whatever that your body needs in this class. And I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you let yourself explore. And I really hope to do these again, and maybe even possibly finding an in-person space, but I will always try and keep it online as well, because I really truly believe in having yoga available to do whenever you're ready to do it. So thank you again, and I hope you have a really amazing weekend. And Jaden, I think I'll see you tomorrow. So have a good one.